So we know that it's very, very clear and blunt in the Torah that the way that we count the months are not the way the Torah refers to in order. In the Torah we find that the month of Nisan is counted as the first month. And that is what we even read during Shabbat. With HaChodesh Hu Lachem. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave Bnei Israel the first month of the year. That first month being Nisan. And the opposite direction, we see Rosh Hashanah being the 7th month of the year. So we see that Rosh Hashanah is not by any means, in the eyes of the Torah, the first month of the year. On the opposite side, we see that Rosh Hashanah is truly the beginning of our year. So how can you come to an understanding of having two different counts, of two different calendars? One, you call it the beginning of the year, and the other one, it's the actual start of the count. So the answer that we always give, which is the answer that Chazal gave us, which is there are two different aspects to look at the year. There is the cycle, and there's a calendar. The cycle being summer, fall, winter, and spring. That's Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah essentially is the structure of how our year begins and ends on a cycle basis. But from a calendar basis of Judaism, we look at Nisan to be the first month of the year. It's a beautiful answer. It's an answer that makes sense. But it still raises a lot of contradiction. Especially when you look at these 2 months and you find that these 2 months actually have some sort of battle with one another. In what way? We know that Rosh Hashanah is the day of judgment. Not in a negative way, but rather it's the day that HaKadosh Baruch Hu pre-decides how our year will look like. So everything that occurs throughout our year is all written and signed on Rosh Hashanah. But we find that Pesach, it's like another opportunity awakens, where suddenly there's all the segulot for single people to get married, for poor people to become rich, for sick people to become healthy. All these little windows of opportunity that a person can bring into his life change, where we look at Pesach being the Chag of redemption. Not just redemption on a klal level, as Mashiach that we all think of, but rather redemption even on a personal level. So if that's the case, how don't both of these holidays contradict one another? Isn't what a person lives throughout the year written on Rosh Hashanah? Being that our whole year is already predetermined on Rosh Hashanah? And if it's predetermined, then how is Pesach an opportunity to change the judgment? To change the conclusion? So the conclusion wasn't sealed to begin with. So how can we make sense of both of these seemingly contradicting months that both hold as opportunities of change throughout our life, and also the title of the beginning of the year? So in order to understand this, in order to really look deep into this, I tried to find different places in the Torah that this concept of beginning of the year is bluntly mentioned and explained, or maybe even expanded upon. And we found a beautiful midrash in Yalkut Shimoni that actually has literally this question, but in the form of a contradiction. And it turns out that in the Hasidic world, it's a very, very famous machloket. And that is the machloket between Rabbi Yoshua and the machloket between Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Yoshua, his opinion that the beginning of the year is Pesach, by all means, Nisan. The Torah says it's the first month, it must be the beginning of the year. Rabbi Eliezer says no. Rabbi Eliezer says it's Rosh Hashanah, where in Rosh Hashanah the world essentially seems to be that it was created. This seems to be like a very simple contradiction. Two Rabbanim have different opinions. But we have to make something clear. It's not about opinions here. They are both big tzaddikim that are clearly holding with a deeper form of connection to Hashem. And they're both witnessing that they are able to see and they're able to know that essentially the year begins at different dates. Now, why is it so big that if the year begins on Sunday or Monday? Because the implication of when the year begins also is talking about the creation of the world. So when we talk about the beginning of something, it's the start. So when we mention this idea of beginning of the year, we're also talking about the creation of the world. Because the year didn't start in the middle. The new cycle couldn't start on a random time and place. The cycle of how our year must start is when HaKadosh Baruch Hu started the creation. So the contradiction between Rabbi Yoshua and Rabbi Eliezer is actually very big. Rabbi Eliezer holds that the world is created and the year starts on Tishrei or Shana. Rabbi Yoshua says no. The year begins on Pesach. But not only begins on Pesach, it was created on Pesach. And both sides, if you try to argue, it's a big baya. Because like we mentioned, if you're going to hold by Rabbi Yoshua, it's clear that Adam was created on Rosh Hashanah. The world was formed on Rosh Hashanah. We read in our prayers that was formed on Rosh Hashanah. But on the other hand, the Torah very, very clearly, bluntly holds Pesach, Nisan, to be the beginning of the year. How can we make sense of this? So in order to understand this, I said maybe if we look into these two tzaddikim, see their different aspects, and we can come to a place of maybe looking at what perspective they had to come to this conclusion. The Zohar Kadosh says many stories about Rabbi Yoshua. The Zohar says Rabbi Yoshua was a big Kabbalist. Whoever is a regular knows that one Lag BaOmer we did a class. It was a very special class on this idea of how the Zohar even came down to the world. And one of the main characters in the descent of the Zohar was Rabbi Yoshua. Deep soul, came from a very deep place of Gilgulim, and there was a neshama that was Bechinat Chesed, the aspect of kindness, this aspect of love. Zohar Kadosh says Rabbi Yoshua was a neshama that was very deep, that looked into the depth not only of the Torah, but every single individual that came in front of him. He didn't look at the person's clothing, didn't look at the person's deeds, but rather looked a level deeper. Look at every single person and saw just a pure diamond of a soul of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's neshama. On the opposite hand, we see that Rabbi Eliezer of the Torah was a little bit tough. We all know the stories that when Rabbi Eliezer came out of the cave, he was looking at people that were not studying Torah and he was burning them alive. Because he said, how can you not be studying Torah? How can you not be sitting in Beit HaMikdash? Rabbi Eliezer wasn't wrong. His perception was a very outer layer perception. He saw a person for his deeds, whether they be good, whether they be bad. He saw what we call in Hebrew the tachlis. The bottom line of what you were able to bring to fruition at your time that you are alive. He wasn't looking if your soul is a big soul, or who you are in the depth of all depth. What you were able to bring out to fruition throughout your life, that's what you represent. Or in other words, midat hadin. Chesed is usually the inner, midat hadin is usually the outer layer, the crust. There's a very famous Zohar. It says something incredible about what really happened on Pesach. Zohar Kadosh says, Pesach is a date that already its roots stem from before the creation of the world. In what way? Zohar Kadosh says, on Pesach, in the month of Nisan, HaKadosh Baruch Hu started to fall in love with Bnei Israel. Where he found a nation that didn't even exist at that time, Bnei Israel, and he decided that he wants to create a world in order that this Bnei Israel could exist. Which is really a famous teaching that I'm sure we've touched upon in many classes. Hashem created the world for us, for each and every individual of us. Zohar Kadosh says, on Pesach, the love that HaKadosh Baruch Hu had for us has awakened. And on Pesach, he decided that he's going to create the world for us. Based off of this idea, we could actually understand something very unique. We can understand the beginning of the creation, not actually forming the worlds, but the beginning of the preparation for the creation happened when? Happened on Pesach. Happened on Nisan. Because on Nisan, the love for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which really caused the creation of the world, was awakened. So we can look at it like this. When a person wants to build a building, there are steps to it. You can't just get up and decide, I'm going to bring a contractor and he will build me a building. Because the first question that the contractor will ask is what? How many stories? Where do you want the entrances? How many bedrooms? And that's all job that you need to do prior to when you want to get to work on building the physical building. When you want to form something, there are two stages. There is a stage that you do not in reality, but rather in your mind and in your heart, of figuring out what you want to do. After you formed that plan and you put the plans in paper and you bounce them off a few people's ideas and that thought got formed, you can take it only then to somewhere, to somebody or do it yourself, and bring that first desire, that first thought to a fruition, to something that exists physically. Maybe we can say, on Pesach, HaKadosh Baruch Hu decided He is going to create the world. Desired the creation of the world. Planned out every detail of its creation. But He never put it in place yet. It was still in the works. It was still in the contractor's mind of how he's going to build it, where he's going to put things, how he's going to make it look. On Pesach, the inner creation of the world, the inner process that's needed of any sort of formation began. On Rosh Hashanah, it started to be built in a physical way. It started to be formed piece by piece, the exact same way HaKadosh Baruch Hu envisioned it in his mind, in his heart, in his desire before he got to work. So maybe we can say, now it makes very simple this contradiction. Rabbi Eliezer is din, judgment. He sees the outside. He sees what exists. What exists within doesn't matter to him. He wants to see what is tachlis, gvura, the outer shell. Rabbi Eliezer looks around the world and says, Rega, the world is built. It was built on Rosh Hashanah. It's obvious that the physical pieces of the world were formed and put together on Rosh Hashanah. That's when the nature calendar of the winter, fall, spring, summer start. The physical world is obvious that it started on Rosh Hashanah. Rabbi Yoshua came around and says, why do you care about what it is in the outside? My envisioning doesn't seep into the outside. It goes directly to the inner creation of the world. The reason that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world the way that He created it didn't begin on Rosh Hashanah. For Rabbi Yoshua, what was important wasn't the physical tachlis, but rather what existed within. So Rabbi Yoshua came along. He said, Pesach is when the world was created. Because in Pesach, the start of the preparation took place. And that's what matters for Rabbi Yoshua. And this is actually something we can start to see with these two Chagim. Rosh Hashanah being very physical, meticulous, quantifiable, order, nature, system. Pesach being just desire. Above the nature, above logic, above explanation, above any need or place to give any sort of explain to anyone. We start to see this also with the different hanhagot, the different ways that we follow HaKadosh Baruch Hu in these two periods. We on these both Chagim, we change our prayer. Pesach, we say, Moridatal, sunlight to the earth. Tishrei, which is Sukkot, but still Tishrei, we change the tefillah to what? Moshiv Aruach and Morid HaGeshem. The Zohar HaKadosh in many places in the book of Yitzirah and so many places in the books of Chassidut describe these two different brachot to two different ways of bringing life to the world. One is called Itorerut Dile'ela and one is called Itorerut Dile'tata. What's the difference between them? Itorerut Dile'tata, Zohar HaKadosh says it's the rain. How does rain form and become a part of our world? First, water in the ocean or in the lake or on the floor dries up, becomes into a gas, becomes into a cloud, and it starts to rise to the sky. Depending on how much water went from the earth to the sky, will be a direct correlation or as a direct reaction of how much water will be able to come from up from the sky down to the earth. The rain represents what? A action from below that causes a reaction from above. But the action that comes from above to below is directly connected to what the initial action started. If a lot of water went from the earth up to the sky, then a lot of water will come from the sky down to the earth. It's a very, very simple system. It's a system that has quantity, and it's a reactive system. Maybe we can say that's Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is a day of team, day of calculation. All what we achieve and receive throughout the year, it doesn't just come out of nowhere. It comes based off of how many mitzvot, how many good deeds, how many bad deeds, how many averot we were able to do. Depending on how much we did from below, whatever we awakened from below will rise and be reacted down back to us from above. Rain represents the way of nature, in which our actions create reactions. And our reactions come in the exact same form of the first actions that came. So it's quantified. It's systematic. It's very, very based on our ability to act and to do. Moshiv Aruach and Morid HaGeshem. Rosh Hashanah. A physical world in which HaKadosh Baruch Hu put time, measurement, size, very, very quantifiable manners. On the opposite side, you have Pesach. Pesach is Morid Atal. Morid Atal is when the light shines down to our earth. The sunlight, you can't do to either cause or to prevent that sunlight coming from above to below. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the big sun above, decided. And you have no ability to stop it, to prevent it, or to cause it from happening. It's not a reaction it's not an action that causes a reaction. It's rather a desire from above that doesn't need anything before to make it happen. Maybe we can say that Pesach is what? It's Morid Atal. It's HaKadosh Baruch Hu desiring to create the world. And no need or reason to make it happen. It represents something that's unquantifiable. Like HaKadosh Baruch Hu's initial desire. You can even see this within our own lives. We can give quantity to how much time we have. We can give quantity to, or reason behind why we like certain things physically, but within our own emotion, it's one of the hardest things to quantify. You can like blue, I can like yellow. I don't have a reason why I like yellow, you don't have a reason you have blue. It is what it is, and what it is fine. Maybe we can say that what Pesach represents is the inner desire of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that inner desire not needing any of our actions, of our deeds, to make them happen within our lives. And this is something we can see even throughout history, very clearly. Pesach, we were redeemed. Was there any reason for us to be redeemed? There's a famous midrash that says that when Bnei Israel were running through the ocean while it was split, the angel of the ocean said, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I don't understand you. You're saving these but killing these. It makes no sense. These are people that are in the 49th level of impurity. These are people in the 49th level of impurity. They should both be treated equally. HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't have a reason. Didn't need a reason. Didn't need a cause. Didn't need an action to cause a reaction for him to act upon Bnei Israel. Rather, sheer love. He desired, he loved us. He told the angel, why are you arguing with me? This is what I want. Move aside. It's a leadership from HaKadosh Baruch Hu that doesn't need anything in return. On the opposite hand, you see Rosh Hashanah. Adam sinned on Rosh Hashanah, but he also did tshuva, so Zohar Kadosh says, because he did tshuva, Hashem forgave him on Rosh Hashanah and on Yom Kippur. So there's a very clear, he did this, and in return, Bnei Israel have a gift, which is this ability to return, this ability to lashuv and to do tshuva and to clean ourselves and to come close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Very, very systematic. Based off this idea, we can understand the one contradiction right after that contradiction in Midrash of Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yoshua, which is the same two people, Rabbi Yoshua and Rabbi Eliezer, argue about something else. They argue about what? They argue about when will the Geula come? Rabbi Yoshua says the Geula will come on Pesach. Rabbi Eliezer says no, the Geula will come on Rosh Hashanah. And their difference of opinion is clear. Because Rabbi Eliezer says there's no geula, there is no redemption, there is no change, there is no influence you can bring into your life that's not as a cause of your action, meaning doing good, structured, systematic. You do good, you'll get a reaction that same very way. Rabbi Yoshua is saying, no. What are you talking about? We have an opportunity to change without need of a reason or an action to cause a reaction. It's Pesach. It's love for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has love for us, that's when the Geula will come. And this is how, Abotai, we can come to a place of understanding how Rosh Hashanah and Pesach don't contradict one another. Rosh Hashanah is how HaKadosh Baruch Hu will write our future year based on what we were able to do. If we were able to do good, then we receive good, that gets signed, and we live with that signature, that contract, that conclusion for the rest of the year. Pesach is something different. Pesach is a date in which HaKadosh Baruch Hu could redeem us, could change our life, and it's not based on what we did. It's not based on what actions we were able to bring forward. It's not based on if we fell or if we didn't, but rather based off of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's sheer love for us. So our job in Pesach is to awaken that love. And if we could awaken that love that Hashem has for us, it doesn't matter what you did and what you didn't, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not looking at your action to create a reaction. It's the sun. The sun doesn't need you to put liquid in the air for water to come back down. The sun shines as it wants to shine, when it wants to shine, and nothing can stop. The sun is an inner power that is unquantifiable. It's like life. And so too could the redemptions be in that same very manner. The redemption that we can receive on Rosh Hashanah, they're quantifiable. They're systematic. They come in that same very way that month leads itself. Pesach. Did you see what happened on Pesach 3,000 years ago? Balagan, water splitting in two, frogs, blood. It was completely changing all laws of nature because it wasn't an action that was caused by a reaction, but rather HaKadosh Baruch Hu's sheer love for us. The Geula that we can all reach to in Pesach is so much greater. Pesach, as Zohar HaKadosh says, is not even a holiday that we are celebrating Yetziat Mitzrayim. Rather, Zohar HaKadosh says Pesach is a holiday that we are celebrating the love that Hashem had for us, because really we were not deserving of it. So the root of the miracle is not even the miracle, but rather the reason of the miracle, which was Hashem, regardless of what we did and where we were and how we were sitting, He still found love to take us out of there. That's what we are celebrating. And that's what we're trying to achieve, to replicate, and to bring into our own lives. A awakening of that same love. And if we could awaken that same love, even if we fell, even if we tripped, and even if we wronged HaKadosh Baruch Hu in times that we didn't want to, but unfortunately Yitzhak was bigger than us, we're still able and worthy of achieving a Geula. So, the question that we can all be thinking of now, how? What do we do? What's the step for Geula? What can we do to make this Pesach like Rosh Hashanah, but with no quantity, no frogs and blood, but no quantity, above the nature? Make us be changed like our biggest imaginations. How do we do it? So in our time, there's a simple class. Every year we try to bring it in, because I think it's so fundamental for the Chag. And that is, what is the most important thing for Chag Pesach? With all the preparations, we get caught up in the matzot, in the wine, in the cleaning. But the Shulchan Aruch says something very clear. Have the best wine in the world, the best matzot in the world. Clean your house to the point where you built a new one. If you're missing one thing, it's not worth anything. If you're missing the story of Yetziat Mitzrayim, all your work is worthless. On the opposite hand, sit on the street, alone, nothing to drink, nothing to eat, no matzah, no wine, nothing, and talk about Yetziat Mitzrayim, and it says, Arei ze mishubach, Yatsa yidei chova, You were like a tzaddik that completed the holiday. One man, miskin, invested half his life, almost divorced with his wife 5-6 times. And he has no chal because he forgot to mention the story at 7 times. And the other one has nothing. So maybe he was talking to himself about this tale that was taught in the Jewish people. And it's like a tzaddik Pesach. How does that make sense? It's a little bit unfair here. Zohar Kadosh is something incredible. What is our goal of the Chag? I think if we understand what our goal is, it'll bring us to an understanding of what the opportunity that lies in front of us. Zohar Kadosh says, every single Pesach, we'll gather around our tables. And we all sit down, we open up the Haggadah, and we start to read all the stories in Yetziat Mitzrayim. Zohar Kadosh says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu calls the angels. He says, come. He says, I'm hearing my children in the exile. They're whispering about me. Can you go down to the world, hear what they have to say about me, and come back? The Zohar Kadosh says, to every single table of our Pesach Seder, there are angels that come down and they visualize what is happening. And they don't just visualize, but they record. So the Zohar says they engrave it on their bones. So it's like a way of recording. They don't have papers and iPhones. Apple didn't reach to Shamayim yet. So they're able to record it on their bones. And that's one of the reasons why the Hasidut, they're very particular about wearing Moroccans will wear jlabiot. We still wear jlabiot on the Chag. Hasidim will cover their neck. Being that you're not alone on the table with your guests, you have literal malachim. As well as being very careful about what we speak. Because it's the one night that it's guaranteed that every word you're going to say is not only going to be heard by an angel, but brought up to the ear of Hashem. The angels come along and they record the entire Leil Seder. And they listen to all of what we have to say. They fly up to Shamayim and they tell HaKadosh Baruch Hu, they say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, this is what your children have to say about you. And it says the king sits down on his throne and he listens. And the Zohar Kadosh jumps straight into an analogy. He said it's like a king that one time ruled upon his people with strength and honor and love and kindness for many years. And suddenly a rivalry of another kingdom came and conquered it. The king had no choice but to abandon his people, went to the forest, hid in the forest, and lived in the forest, secluded from the kingdomship he once had. He says, when that king sits down, there's only one thing that can cause him to inspire him to want to go to war, to want to conquer. And that is what? That's if that king starts to hear whispers that his people want his return. That his people remember, even after years upon years of his kingdomship's collapse, still mention it. Still talk about it, still share it with one another, still tell tales about the days of his victory, and the days of his ruling, and the days of his goodness. It says when the king hears that, he says, my kids are in exile, my people are in exile, and they still didn't forget me. And I still have a nation waiting for me. If that nation is still there, I have to redeem them. I have to conquer my land, and I have to sit back once on the throne where it was. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu hears all what we have to say about him. And it says his heart, which is his bina, which is like the left side of the brain, the more emotional side of the brain. We're talking about our brain because we're built in his image. So the left side of the brain, which is more emotional, it starts to get awakened. And Hashem starts to bring a tear. When he says, I'm sitting here in my throne. My children are in exile. And throughout all those years of suffering, they still didn't forget what I did to them once. They still didn't forget the days that I redeemed them. They still didn't forget the days where I was their king. Zohar Kadosh says, Kadosh Baruch Hu rises, says, that's it. I have to redeem my children. I have to bring my children back to the kingdomship. I have to take back what belongs to me and to my people. Zohar Kadosh says, there isn't a time of the year where Hashem is this close to redeem the world like it is on Pesach. The only thing that's necessary is that extra push. That extra desire, which is like a person that loves, that does something that's illogical. It goes against the nature, it goes against the understanding. Some people, they love people, they're willing to die for them. It against all what makes sense. We need that little push of Hashem. We need to push Hashem to the point where He puts everything aside, all our actions, all what we did, good, bad, tried, not tried, meant, not meant, put it all aside to redeem us again. Rabotai, we really need it. And this Rabotai, like I mentioned, is not just Geula Mashiach. It's literally each individual in his personal life, his own personal issues, with what his own personal needs. Redemption doesn't have to be this big explosion story. Geula can be even applicable to each and every one of us in our own personal way. Rabotai, if we're entering a month like that, where all our life and all our action gets put aside, and our only job is to awaken the love Hashem has for us, we need to make it count. Because here it's not a matter of necessarily hard, not hard. You have a Father in Shamayim that loves you. You just need to awaken that love to the point that this month will be a month of Geula. On a personal level, and on a level that Be'ezrat Hashem we will all hear the sound of the shofar. Amen. Come together for Biat Mashiach Tzidkenu. B'mera b'yamenu. Amen. Is there any questions?